Alright, so I finally got all my parts in yesterday. And the goal is to turn this pile of parts into a new computer to be used as a home server. Now, if you look closely, I'm sure some of you are probably saying right now, you got some overkill components for a home server. And you would be correct. But my current home server, which is that pig right there, is pretty much maxed out. It's got a motherboard that's about 4 years old or so. It's got a Athlon 2 dual core processor. It's pretty slow. So anyway, I didn't want to have to worry about having to upgrade hardware anytime soon. So I went with some, I guess, higher performance parts in this configuration just to keep from having to do that. So the case, as you can see, is a Fractal Define R4. Now this case comes in a couple of different variations. You can get, of course, different colors. It comes in black, titanium, and white. And you can also get with or without a window on the left panel. I opted to go with the window since I bought some Cooler Master blue LED fans. I want to be able to see the pretty lights. So anyway, that's my decision. I decided to go with the Asus M5A99FX Pro R2 motherboard, and I just prefer the Asus motherboards. I've used, Asus, of course, MSI, Gigabyte, the old 8-bit boards, ECS, BioStar. I've used quite a few different motherboards, and I have had less issues with the Asus motherboards than any other brand by far. And I've built, goodness, damn near 3,000 computers, so I think that qualifies as quite a bit of experience. So I just prefer the Asus, not knocking the other boards really on their performance, more so on their reliability that I personally have experienced over the years. So I just tend to use Asus in just about everything I build. So anyway, so I decided to go with the AMD FX 6300 CPU. It's a 6-core processor. Should handle a home server without flaw. I prefer AMD processors because I just personally feel that you get a better performance cost ratio out of AMD than you do Intel. Intel's a great processor, very, very good performing processor, but they just tend to be more expensive. So if you want the best of the best and the budget doesn't matter, by all means go with Intel. But I don't necessarily need the latest and greatest, fastest processor on the market, so I tend to go with AMD. I just feel like I get more for my money. And I'm going with the Corsair Vengeance memory, and this is 16 gigabyte. It's four gigabyte strips. It's a 4-strip kit. It's DDR3 1600 megahertz. The motherboard is capable of supporting 32 gigabyte, but I certainly don't need 32 gigabyte, and I probably don't need 16 gigabyte, but you know what, that's what I got. So anyway, I got the standard CD, DVD drive, combo drive, readable, writable. It's Asus, got good reviews. Asus motherboard, Asus optical drive, why not? I'm going to go with this Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo CPU cooler. Tons of reviews out there on this guy. It's a very cheap unit, but very positive on the feedback on the reviews that I've seen. It comes with a 120 millimeter fan, but has brackets to add an additional 122 millimeter fan. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the single stock 120 millimeter fan, and I'm going to add 2 of these Cooler Master Sickle Flow 120s. These are 120 millimeter fans with 4 blue LEDs. I'm going to put 2 of those on the cooler in a push-pull setup. Now the stock fan on this unit is rated at 2000 RPMs and 89 CFM. So these Sickle Flow 120s are rated at 2000 RPMs and I believe it's 69 CFM. But I'm going to have 2 on there, like I said, in a push-pull. I'm not going to be doing any overclocking, so it should cool it, perfectly fine. And if not, then I'll just change it. But I really don't have any doubts that it'll cool the processor without any problems. So over here I've got 2 Seagate 4 terabyte drives that I'm going to put in this thing, and that's going to be in addition to 3 2 terabyte drives that I've got in my current home server, and also I have a 90 gigabyte Corsair SSD that I'm going to be installing into this new home server for the OS and any other programs such as iTunes, Drive Bender, etc., etc. Which, for those of you that's not used Drive Bender, I'll tell you what, I really like that program. And basically what it does is it takes multiple hard drives and creates one pooled drive. So it'll take all of these hard drives I'm going to put, the 2 4 terabytes and the 3 2 terabytes, and pull them all together into one drive. So I'm not certain on the read and write performance through Drive Bender, but the data integrity is just rock solid. I've been using it for just under a year, and I've not had any issues whatsoever as far as using it in a server environment with light usage, right? So I've not had any issues. I do recommend that program. I think there's about a $20 or $25 charge for the license key, but you can trial it for, I don't know, I think it's a week or 2, somewhere in there, 30 days maybe, to see if you like it. It's very easy to add and remove drives from your pool. You can do duplication, somewhat like mirroring. So if you lose a drive, you don't lose your data. So just a neat alternative to your traditional RAID setup, I guess. So I'm going with the Corsair HX850 power supply. It's a modular power supply. There were well over 2,000 reviews on Newegg for this thing. Great reviews. Corsair makes a great power supply. I mean, all of their products, in my experience, are really, really good. The memory, the power supplies, the cases, the liquid cooling units, really well made, reliable product. So I've got this Fractal 140 millimeter fan. I bought that to go with my case, obviously. There are 2 140 millimeter slots in the front bottom. It comes with one populated with the fan, and I'm just going to add that one, so I'll have 2 140 millimeter fans for an intake. It also has a 140 millimeter fan in the top back for exhaust. It has 2 in the very top of the case for either 120 millimeter or 140 millimeter. I opted to go with 120 millimeter. So those will be exhausting. And there's a spot in the bottom of the case right behind the power supply location that you can use as an intake, and I'm going to try and use one of the 120 millimeter fans to go in there if I can. It's questionable on whether or not I'll have enough space with that power supply there. So we'll see there. Some concerns I've got about this build. Oh wait, I forgot. Video card. VisionTek Radeon HD 7790. So yeah, I guess this is probably more of a gaming video card. And this is actually the overclocked edition. I think the standard 7790 from this manufacturer is 1000 megahertz, and this one is actually 1075 megahertz. So it's slightly overclocked. I'll tell you the primary reason I bought this video card. It's probably well, it is. It's a stupid reason, but it's the only one I've got. This video card is blue and black in color. The motherboard is blue and black in color primarily, so I thought it would look good together. So that's the whole reason I bought this video card. I could have easily gone with a 4000 or 5000 series card and saved quite a bit of money, but you know what, that's not what I did. So anyway, but back to the concerns. So I'm a little bit concerned about the fans that I mount in the very top of the case. I'm concerned about the power cables not reaching on the motherboard where they need to plug in, which is going to be in the bottom part of the case where the motherboard is at. So I might have to get some extensions for that, but we'll see once I get in there. And the only other concern I've already spoken about is that bottom inlet fan right behind the power supply. I'm a little concerned that maybe that won't fit, but it's not a huge big deal. If it doesn't, I'll just have a spare fan. So anyway, this is going to be the build. Hopefully it turns out well. I'm going to use Windows 8. Alright, nobody cringe. I'm using Windows 8 because I've already got it handy, and there's no sense in buying another OS when I've got one on standby ready to go. So anywho, I'll probably take some photos and maybe some more video as I progress through the build, and until then, it's time to get started.